So tonight we're meeting, okay, I'll get there. We're meeting with the budget subcommittee, and meeting is called to order at 6:01, and Kim Bears is present. I told you I'm not doing well today. Kim Bears is present, Donna Plant, Erin Matlin, and Nancy Hendricks is present. Jan is not present at this time. So there's no public comment, so there's nobody here for public comment, so we will move on to the next thing, which we are discussing the FY26 budget. What I gave you in your little packet thing is the same thing that we handed out at the trustees meeting and at the last budget subcommittee. I didn't do any changes. I know we discussed at the trustees meeting about some changes, so we can go over those. But I also wanted to let you know I just included a copy of our current budget and our current spending right now, and then the final numbers from FY24, if you wanted to look at any sort of comparisons or information. So we can open the discussion to talk about the FY26 budget and what came up at the trustees meeting when we talked to the other board members. One thing that I remember was the furniture line was up for discussion. Do we want to discuss that, or does anybody here want to make any changes at all? Like, what do we want this to look like? So, I mean, I open
the
it up.
money in there.
Yeah.
From my view, if you need furniture, you need furniture.
Yeah.
And I thought about this afterward. So, when the town of Londonderry needs new furniture, I think they put out a request for bid and they get a bid and they buy some. I don't know, I mean, you all would probably know better than I do. I don't know that the chair of the town council or the town manager run around town trying to make friends with people to get them to donate furniture.
Yeah.
So as much as I appreciated the perspective to save money, I'm not convinced that that's a good use of your time.
Yeah.
To make friends with somebody, to ask them to donate furniture.
Yeah.
So I think that if you need furniture, you put it in the budget.
I mean, there are other things, in fact, Donna and I were talking about today, like how there are other ways that we reach out to help save money for the library. Like we try, maybe we'll get instead of a performer to cost money, we'll try to look for free options of people that can come and do programs, or the staff, obviously, which is still a paid position but not additional cost, do programs, or we look into getting donations in other parts of the library for other things. But I think it gets to a point where there's an over-ask opportunity, and I don't want us to over-ask, where we've come into situations where we don't get donations because these particular groups have already been asked by other departments in town or whatever. And at the same time, I also don't want to make it be a garage sale library is what I call it. And that's what happened at my last library. People would see things on the Facebook Marketplace and go pick it up, and we'd add a bookshelf to the library. Didn't match anything.
Nope. We're not going to have a hodgepodge.
It looked like crap. It looked like crap. And I think as a town of Londonderry department, we should be better than that, and and our patrons deserve better than
100%.
that. So I feel strongly that we should keep the money in there.
Me too.
I don't think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think, because it's obviously not a ton of money, we wouldn't be buying the amount of furniture that we would need to go out to bid for it. This would be smaller amounts, a chair and a table at a time, or maybe a book display thing, whatever have you that looks like, but it wouldn't be the amount where we would have to go out to bid. So there's that.
We also need to make it clear that now that we're in a consortium, we're going to have people from other towns coming
We are going to
into
be
this
busier, yes.
library.
Good.
And is that
Very good
what we
point.
want to show?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and again, not to beat a dead horse on it, but I live in the world of lawsuits, and all we need is one individual sitting in a chair that breaks and they fall on the floor and they crack their head open or break their spinal cord or something.
Yeah.
And we're going to have a heck of a
And we want to avoid that, obviously. So try to get ahead of it by, putting in what I think is a very small amount of money to start the process of replacing what we can, or start the process of like focusing, okay, this area, we're going to get a couple of new chairs because we lost 2 chairs, or whatever that looks like, and, build from there.
Sure.
We're getting close to 30 years
Yeah.
in this new.
Well, and that's like, Donna pointed that out, like everything, all the furniture in here is when the building was built. So it's all going to go at the same
Yep,
time.
I saw it all.
So, which I thought was a really great point, because it's true. If things are starting to go, like we just had to replace our 3rd toilet handle, God help us, which I know is weird, but we did. We replaced our 3rd, and those were toilets from the original building. So, and those all broke at once, pretty much like
literally
one right after the other. So that was like a perfect example of what's happening and why we need to stay on top of it, so we don't have, and we're very lucky, DPW has replaced those for us, but the furniture won't be such an easy fix.
No.
And so we need to stay on top of that. And I thought that was a really great point, that everything's going to start breaking once, and it is. And it's happening with the toilet handles, but that's just, that's
That's the tip of it.
yeah, that's just the tip of the iceberg. So in agreeance to keep the
Yes,
furniture line in there.
absolutely.
Okay. Was there anything else that you guys wanted to talk about?
Well,
Sure.
we had started just kind of maybe as ground zero. We talked about this at the last meeting. Our legal account for $2,000. And
Yes.
I think that I had asked, were we able to get any figures at all?
I have not heard back from Justin yet. I will follow up with him, but I have not heard back from him.
I mean, if our legal expenses last year were, $432.12, then $2,000 might be too high of a place to start. But if our legal expenses from last year were $1,500, then $2,000 might be reasonable for the upcoming year. I don't
Okay.
know.
I apologize. That kind of fell
right.
off my radar. I will follow up with him, and I will, if I do hear back from him, I'll certainly share it with both you and Kim, and
Yep.
also with the rest of the board at the October meeting, if that's okay?
Yep.
Because I know this will be on the agenda then, so.
Yep. Yep, I'm good with that. The big part of anybody's budget is always salaries and benefits.
Yes.
So,
We do not have an updated.
okay.
The number that we plugged in was my own estimating, but I mean, obviously, we'd really like Justin to also do the math.
Yep.
Yeah.
So Justin has not confirmed
Yeah.
the number for us yet.
And
We
that's
usually
right.
do try to meet with him to go over, I think, some things before we, obviously go to deliberative or anything like that, just to make sure our numbers are all match up. And but we'll try to get those numbers before that, obviously.
Okay. All right, so if we don't have any new info on salaries and benefits, I don't think I have any other big questions. Except for, can I ask, just because I'm still new to the Gmails thing? So this $52,262, that's all startup, is that right?
No.
No.
What is that?
We've already taken care of startup through a friend's donation and the trustees.
Okay. So
paying
this
for
is
it.
what we need.
So this is an annual membership fee.
So $52,262 is annual for how long? Forever?
No, there's always an opportunity where it could change. It could go down. It's a formula that G-Milks has that decides what the cost for each library will be going, like, for the next year. So it can go down a little bit. It could go up a little bit.
And honestly, the 52,000 figure is also an estimate because they haven't sent out the
bill yet.
the FY26 information yet.
So when do you
So
think we'll
we're
have that?
they determine at their June meeting. Is that right? They finally vote on budget in their June.
Yeah.
So what we
Yeah.
do for our budget is we take last year's number and I added 5% as if it's going to have
Yeah.
an increase.
Yeah.
Got it.
So it could be less than that.
Okay.
Or I can't imagine it's going to be more than that.
No, I hope the
Yeah.
increase will be less than 5%.
Yeah. We were kind of playing it safe by doing that.
Right. So, I wanted to ask you is, so the difference between general supplies and, so line item 610 and 620. So, general supplies, can you run through that maybe with be a little more specific? Security tags, book covers,
Yes.
pocket stickers, etc.
versus office.
Yeah.
So the general supplies covers what we need for processing materials.
Okay. Got it.
So that, like the book covers, cases, yeah, all that stuff, all the labels. Whereas office supplies is more like your Post-its, your pencils, your
Yeah.
pens, like that stuff.
Okay.
So, and we currently outsource some of our processing, so that gets billed to that line.
And then I wanted to also ask you about maintenance and repairs. So do we have any kind of trust funds isn't the right word. Reserve funds, like this, the town and the school have reserve funds if something catastrophic happens.
We do not.
Okay. So, I mean, I know I'm asking you to kind of predict, but do you expect anything catastrophic this year? Like, do we know, like, is the furnace 30 years old, to your point?
Well, the furnace gets inspected every year.
Okay.
It just had an inspection. I believe everything is fine.
Okay.
I don't anticipate anything. I have had a very quick, very small conversation with Justin,
Okay.
kind of sharing that because they have those departments have those reserve funds. I do think the library should also have one, even if it's just, starts off with $2,000 or whatever that looks like. I don't know much about the other funds and how they got created and what that looked like. So it is something we can certainly talk to him about. I don't anticipate it obviously happening for the FY26 budget,
Right.
but it's certainly something that we can start that discussion and figure out how to make that happen.
Yeah.
I don't know what the rules and the procedures are for that, but I do think because other departments have it, why can't we have it?
Yeah.
And I especially, like, for example, let's just say there's a massive leak in the roof. I mean, it's got to get fixed.
Right.
So the last thing that we ever want, and I'm not suggesting that this has happened with you all, but the last thing that we ever want is to go to the public with a deficit,
Yeah.
asking for more money, because then they're going to go, look at them, they don't know how to manage
Yeah,
their money.
yeah.
Right.
So I think that, yes, asking Justin about how to start planning for rainy days would be a good thing, because the school district has maintenance trust funds, and so does the town. And I don't know that it would be a bad idea for us to put some money away for a rainy day. And you're right, I don't know how that starts either.
Yeah, so like I said, I had a really quick talk with him
Yeah,
about it
yeah.
because I was like, do we have one? Am I missing something? And he told me that we didn't. So, and I said, is there a way for us to get one? And I believe he said yes. But again, I was like, okay, well, let me, now that I know that it's possible,
Right.
let me, go back and figure out what we need to do. So we can certainly have that conversation with
Yeah.
him and start and, take a look at those procedures and see what they look like.
Yep. And this is just the rest of the board of trustees might think that's a really dumb idea.
Of course, and we can. I mean, I could find out information and then bring it to the board
Right.
to see, like, okay, well, now that I found out more, we have to do this, this, and this, and it may not, and the board may say, well, it's not worth it, or they may say, yes, let's go for it, and
Right.
we'll figure it out from there. But I can follow up with Justin and figure out what those steps look like
Yep.
to get that, because I agree with you. It's kind of nice to have that little
Yeah.
pocket so that we're planning again for those moments, which hopefully never happen, but I'd rather have a plan.
Right. I mean, most of us hopefully.
And it
we're all
actually
trying
makes
to
us
do-
look
Yeah.
responsible.
Right?
Yeah.
Exactly right. We sort of try to do this at home, right? To
Yeah.
have money set aside for the care of our home so that,
Yep.
you don't have to go
Same.
get
Yep.
a loan, for God's sake, when something happens. So
Right.
we should probably start doing that too. But
Yeah, absolutely.
I think
that's a good idea.
other than that, I don't have any big questions.
No, I don't have, I know how,
I know, I'm
Yeah.
new, so I'll stop.
Do you have anything you want to talk about?
I'm in the field.
I-
know all this.
I know
Two
you
things.
do.
I didn't know if you wanted to give an update on the budget committee tour.
Oh, yes, I can. I was thinking if I
yes.
should give that.
That's right. Yes,
I know.
I'm sorry.
I'll give it at the trust BBT meeting too, but I
Yeah.
can.
Oh, I would
How
love to
did it
know.
go?
Yeah. So Maura was here from the trustees, which was great. I mean, she just kind of followed us around. I don't know if she asked any questions, but that was fine. So there was, the chair was here, and I want to say there was at least maybe the whole board, all the members were there. I'm not, and I apologize, I don't know. I know there's a couple new members on there, so But I did give them a tour, and I gave them I felt a real thorough tour. And they were impressed with a lot of the services that we had. The notary service obviously being one of them. He thought that was really impressive because, town hall is not open on nights and weekends, and
Right.
we are, and we can provide that service, which we have a number of times. So that was really great. He did ask a question at the end of the tour. I had them in this room so they could finish their meeting, and he asked me if I noticed, if I anticipate, almost like your question, any big repairs or anything like that. And I did mention the furniture, how we were coming up with a plan to kind of budget for that, and he said that was a really smart idea, which felt good to have that support.
Absolutely.
And then I did mention that we'd like to, not in the fiscal year of 26, but maybe plan for it, is replace the carpeting, the building. Again, it's all original carpeting. It's faded, there's stains, it's also coming up in some areas. We've had to tape it down.
Trip hazard.
Right. So, and we would be replacing it with carpet squares, which is a much more fiscally responsible
Yeah,
thing,
good.
because now you're not replacing the whole carpet, you're just replacing one area if need be.
Right.
So that, and I know other libraries have done that, and they've had great success with it. So I did mention that, but I was really happy that they came, because I think a lot of them weren't totally aware of everything that we do, which is great.
Right.
They were very impressed with the cookbook club that we had. The books are on display for the soups. They were very impressed with that. A couple of the members were like, I'm going to get my wife to come in and do that. So that was great. But it was just, I felt it was a very positive
Did you ask
experience.
them if they all had library cards?
Right.
I did not ask them that.
I would say,
Darn.
come step right
But some of them did get the postcards to get a new card.
Okay,
so
good, yeah.
they said they had to come in and do that. But so I felt it was a really positive experience.
Good.
I was very happy to do it, and I shared with them that I think, because I think it's no one's fault, but I feel like as an employee of the town, and even people who work at town hall, DPW, fire, police, a lot of times they're not aware of what's happening in other departments because they're so busy at their own, right?
Absolutely.
So like, I'm not aware of everything that DPW does. I have a good idea, but I'm not aware. And I thought it would be a great idea if town employees could have opportunities to tour other departments, and so that we can take that information and have it in our back pocket for if patrons ask us questions, or if someone calls and says, who do I call about this? Maybe I'll remember who to do that, and just kind of like get us all in, so that we are also not only aware of what each department does, but we're then able to support that department and speak to, which I would anyways, of how hard they work, and what their goals are, or what they would really like to do, or I know for a fact that DPW is struggling with their space. So to be able to share that and support them in any way that we can, I think that's really important.
I agree, because when you start watching as an outsider, when you start watching some of these budget conversations, throughout the year or during budget season, sometimes you can get the impression that they're all like competing kind of against each other.
Yeah.
But we're all on the same team.
Right.
We're
And
all representing the town of
I even
Londonderry.
told Patrick, who's the chair of the budget committee, I said, I totally have full respect for what you guys do as the budget committee. It is not an easy job. You've got to really take a look, and everybody needs something, right? All the departments need something, and you've got to figure out how to manage that and really be fair and do your best. So that is a tough job, but I think if we were able to just have some insight on those departments, then we can, maybe some would speak up for us and say, I was at the library, they gave a tour, and their carpet definitely needs replacing, and I support that 1,000,000%. And just have someone else speak to whatever those needs are, if they wanted to. They don't have to, obviously, but I think it would just kind of open our eyes to everybody's got these challenges, everybody's facing those budget struggles. And if we could just support each other and, defend, even if necessary, if they feel like it, each other, and go forward with that, I think that would be great. So
100%.
I kind of shared that with them.
Good.
Yeah, but I thought it was a really, well, I shared it with Patrick, kind of as he was walking out the door. So, because we were talking about how they were going on, they appreciated the tour, and they were going to tour, I think it was the fire department next, but they did tour DPW last year, I think it was, and they had no idea the kind of work environment that they were working in, and it really opened their eyes to some things. So I think it's beneficial to everybody to do that.
Absolutely.
But I just felt it was really nice for us to share all the things, and I didn't even share everything, like honest to God, like I could have been talking all night, but just to give like a snapshot of what we do and the kind of stuff that we share and offer our patrons, I think is really important. And hopefully they can go home and tell that to their friends and neighbors, and you know, and just advocate or use the library. You know? So I felt it was really good.
I have a question just to get back to this budget.
Oh, of course.
What is the bottom line figure on this budget?
So we didn't put one on here because we don't have the exact numbers for the salaries and the other medical stuff.
So all of
so
this comes to what, roughly?
I did not add it up, but I can.
Oh, nope, I can add it up. Don't worry about it. I can take care of it.
Because it's, I
The
just
thing is that some of the benefits, like these are last year's numbers.
Right,
Yeah.
so I'm
But
just
you
going
can
to
still
make a
add it up.
suggestion. When
Yeah.
you come to the Board of Trustees, even if you don't have these figures, I suggest that you have a bottom line
Okay.
figure, because I'm probably not going to be the only one that asks that
No,
question.
and normally
And you
we
can
also
say
put a
that it's an
percent.
estimate. We don't, we do this with the school board all the time. You know, these are not final figures, and you can say that a million times so that people can understand that. But I just think that it's important for people to sort of know what the figure is.
Yeah.
You probably know because you've been here a million years, but you know. Well, I don't mean that literally, like you're more experienced than I am on this committee. So.
now take it easy, ladies. Yeah, no, that's a good idea.
Insulting.
I know that. She's got a boot on. Be careful.
I was just going to say she's going to come over here and kick me.
Okay, no, I think that's we can certainly do that. That's not a problem.
And then the other thing that came up at the meeting that Jan suggested was coming up with some kind of like communication plan. So I wasn't sure if you wanted to discuss that at all. Like she was suggesting we have something going into the presentation where
Oh,
if
yeah.
someone brings up wanting to make a cut, that we'd have an idea of what would be cut if that happened.
You're going to
I
have to
personally
refresh my
find-
memory. I don't. Tell me more. I don't
think
really
she was
remember.
saying-
Yeah,
like
so
a
she was
plan
talking like a contingency plan.
contingency.
So basically, like she wanted, if they suggest to cut 10,000,
Sure.
where that would come from, and then if they suggest cutting 20,000, how that would impact service. Like she wanted that kind of laid out. My thing with that is I just feel like putting that out there in a meeting could, like I'm worried about what it leads to.
Outside of here, you mean, like putting it out?
No, like
just
even in
creating
this
one to
sense,
Oh, I see.
Say, I'm sorry.
because creating it here will make it a public document.
Oh, that's true.
So it's almost like planting the
Yeah.
idea in a sense. And in reality, I'm not sure that we can promise that that is the only thing that it would impact, like depending on the
Right.
level of money.
You don't
So
know
I don't know.
unless you're
I
in-
get what she was asking, but
Yeah.
I worry about the outcome if we did it.
So if someone asks us, let's just make this up. So if somebody asks us to cut $10,000 out of our budget,
Right.
then her idea was for you to put together a document saying where it's going to come from?
Yes, for like us to come up with basically a communication plan. I'm thinking of it as to like, okay, if we had to take out $10,000, it would impact materials a little bit. It would impact museum passes, like that kind of thing.
I don't feel comfortable
Yeah,
doing that
I
because
understand.
I really feel strongly. I know it's like stupid for me to say, but I really feel strongly that we should not be cut.
Not
We
be
were
Okay.
essentially sacrificed last year, and we were the only department. And I feel that it would be really it would feel even more like an attack, a personal attack, if we got cut again.
Right.
And I really feel with this budget that we have here, if we obviously we updated the numbers with the salaries and all that jazz, there is nothing that we are asking for that I feel is unnecessary or what they like to refer to as a want.
A want.
I feel all of these things are necessary, and they're, to be honest, the bottom of the necessary line. We need more than this, but we understand that we can't obviously ask for that, and so we are asking for the minimum, essentially, of what we really need. And I do hope that the Budget Committee, Town Council, and the community members see that, because there is really nothing in this budget that is an over-ask, in my opinion.
So, I don't disagree with you. However,
Yep.
I think that we need to be prepared.
But how do you prepare for something you don't know what they're going to say?
You go through this, Aaron,
Yep.
line item by line item, and say, okay, I disagree with them vehemently. But if we're being asked to cut, just as an idea,
Yeah.
these are some places, perhaps, this would be really painful for us,
Yeah.
but this,
So if they were just to ask me, if I presented the budget and they said, okay, what would you do if we cut you? Where would that look like? I think I would almost say, like, I would almost feel comfortable in saying that obviously we would not be able to cut anything from those lines that are electric, heat, water, those types of lines.
Right.
Obviously, those lines have to stay. So we would be looking at service lines, essentially, is what you want to.
not necessarily, because we're asking for a new position.
That would be by probably warrant article, though.
Right.
This is going to be a separate warrant article?
I most likely will be. I'd be
I think
surprised.
Uh,
that they're going to have us do a warrant article.
Okay, then that, I would be prepared for that, because maybe they could say to you, okay, could you live with a part-time? This is a full-time position, this isn't even loaded. Could you live with part-time? I think you have to have an answer for that. And I don't think that you can just say to them, no.
Well,
I don't really think, if it's going to warrant, I don't think that's their decision to make. I think if we're bringing it to the voters, it's really the board's decision.
Yeah, the board
on what
can
they're
say-
presenting to the voters.
Right.
So they could ask the question, but I don't know that we have to provide an answer.
And
I think the answer is it's the board's decision.
Yeah. That we would have to get back
And that,
to the.
and that we can present their question to the board, or their suggestion to the board, but it's really the board's decision.
That
Like the
answer,
board-
that answer I'm okay with, but what I am not okay with is if we go before them and they say, we're with you, but again, this is a tight year, blah, blah, blah. You know, every budget has 5% of fat in it,
Yeah.
every budget,
Yep.
Aaron. And I'm speaking for them, I'm not saying.
I understand. No, I totally get it.
So if they say to you, you need to go back to the drawing board and take 5% out of this budget, where would that be? Then I think you have to have an answer.
And I think I would say that I will bring that recommendation back to the board, and we will work on where and they will decide where that 5% comes from, or decide if they want to
Very
do it.
likely be from a service.
I mean,
Yeah.
I
But yeah, I think there's no doubt in my mind it'll be from a service line.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
no doubt. It's going to come, and most likely it could come from books. It can come from the furniture, which is not ideal, but it could come from any of these line items.
right.
But anytime you cut from one of these line items, it's going to affect service.
Of course it
And
does.
it's going to affect staff.
I understand.
So, yeah.
All I'm saying is we need to be prepared.
Yep. And I would feel more comfortable saying to them, instead of saying, well, it would probably come from the book line, I wouldn't say that.
Right.
I would, in fact, I don't think I'm allowed to say that because I have to bring it back to the board.
Of
It's
course
on
you
the site.
do.
So I would definitely bring it back to the board and say, like, I will, if there has to be a cut, I will bring that information back to the board and we will work together to
Right.
figure out what that looks like.
Okay. I just want you to be prepared.
Oh, no, I thank you. Yeah, no, I agree with you.
Because that's how they are.
Yeah, and I would almost feel better about it if that was across the board.
Exactly.
If that was being asked of every department,
Okay.
that would be fair to me.
I don't disagree with
Yeah.
that, but it may not happen that way.
I agree, and it didn't happen last year.
Right. So what I'm saying is I would be pissed too.
Yeah.
And I will be pissed. But we can't let them know that.
Right, I know. I'll try.
Are you picking up what I'm putting down here, sister?
I got
All right.
So-
I just behave.
I would want to pick up my something and throw it at them and say,
Yeah.
here, you do it,
Yeah.
but we can't be like that.
No, I know, and I have full respect for what they're asking, and if they have a job to do, and I absolutely respect that. But it's also my job to defend and advocate for what my library and my
that's
patrons.
what our role is to
And so that's
support you.
That's
exactly
what
right.
that's what I feel like I can do, to the best of my
Yep.
ability.
Yep.
So
Nancy, just to
Yeah.
clarify, I totally get the be prepared. Are you suggesting, though, that we be prepared to the extent that Jan is suggesting? Or are you just saying be prepared with a
With a state-
response?
yeah,
Do we have a trustees meeting before we go to see them? Yes, I think we need to.
That's so hard, though.
I know it
because-
is, but I just think that we can't be caught flat-footed. We don't want to look like we're dopes. We can't, if we don't know where we can take some money out of this budget if we have to. I agree. It is very difficult.
I think it feels more of like we're reluctant to do it. Like
No,
not that I obviously would listen to all things being said, but I think the board has every right to say, if they come back to you and say you need to cut the budget 5%, I think the board has every right to go back to them and say, can you tell me that every department is getting this cut? Can you tell me why we're getting a 5% cut? Can you tell me this is the second year in a row we've been cut? How did you come to this conclusion? Like, I think the board has every right to ask these questions. You're elected to defend the library and its mission, and that includes the budget. And if you feel strongly that this budget is not an over ask, and we are, which I feel, I think you have every right to question and try to understand where they're coming from, so that we can come up with a plan.
100%. And if they give us an answer that we don't like, we're still going to have to try to make nice.
Oh, I understand.
You
Yeah, and we did that last year.
No, I know. I was there.
Yeah. So I mean, and unfortunately, we have no idea
Right.
what we're walking into. I mean, I don't think any department does. So we going in, I feel like with a fair and fiscally responsible budget, keeping in mind the consistent need and services to our
Right,
patrons
right.
and the growth there. But
Yeah. So we need to focus really now on presenting it to them.
Correct.
And then deal with the rest later,
Yep.
you know?
Yeah. Done and with.
and I
So,
oh no, go ahead.
I strongly feel that because of all the questions that we've been getting and Justin's been getting about the trustees account, that there's going to be possibly a recommendation for the board to supplement the budget with that money. So I honestly would also say that the board should be prepared to come up with maybe something they'd be willing to. In the past, what's been done is the board has supplemented the book line. But it's been more so, it's not been planned like this before. It's been more so that the director goes to the board and requests a certain amount because we've gone through most of the budget or something along those lines, like midway through the year, for example.
Yeah.
It hasn't been so much planned, like the trustees are going to budget to supplement this.
Okay, so you're going to have to back this truck up a little
Sure.
bit. So we have our own fund. We have our own
Yes,
account. How much
that is
money-
not raised through taxes.
And how much is in that now?
Jan gave the last figure.
Yeah, I have it.
30
From
something?
the last meeting, do you have it? I don't remember off the top of my head. It's in the trustees, it's in the minutes, it should be in the beginning of that packet. The treasurer's report?
Okay, yeah.
I mean, that's not a totally up-to-date number, but it's
No,
close.
but it's the last.
I got it.
Oh, okay.
Trustees account, yeah, that's definitely not the right number. On here, it's 64,000,
But that's
but
not it.
that does not include what you paid for Gmail.
Exactly,
Yep.
which was 17.
17.5?
Well, actually, you paid that plus the Friends donation.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's really like 25,000
Okay.
or so.
So 64 less the 25?
Yeah, I would say
Okay.
less 25. I know there was more spending, but that's the big one I know.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so, and that's something that they could point to. So who's asking about that account? According
We've
to
had a
Justin?
lot of public, well, we've had members of the public that are saying that many other people are asking them.
I think part of it is that there is confusion. I'm not saying what Donna's saying is not going to happen. I also agree with that. But I think there is some confusion out there on. So do you remember when it was a community member, I believe it was Christine Perez, asked at one of the public comment about the trustees' accounts? And I think she was confused
Yes.
because there's the trustee account, which is what we give you guys,
Right.
and then there's the trust funds.
Right.
So I think honestly there might be some confusion with that because they are very close in name. And so the trustees account has the trustees' money, and then we have the book account. So that's ours on our end, right? And then there's these trust funds, which I found out recently from a community member who reached out to Justin to find out this information, that we have two, apparently, library trust funds with the town. So I don't have any documentation on these trust funds, nor does Justin, it appears. So I actually reached out to the state today, the assistant state librarian, and asked her how one goes about finding out information about trust funds that they have no paperwork on. Because I'm assuming I can maybe go to the state, I just don't know, is there a person I
So
talk
we're
to?
assuming that there's money in these two mystery trust funds?
There is money, not a ton. To my knowledge, that this patron shared with me, one of the trust funds has about $10,000 in it, and the other one has, I think, a couple $1,000s. But there's rules on how you can spend the money
Right.
Well,
and
okay.
what you can spend it on.
First things first.
So that's why I'm trying before. And no money's been taken out of these accounts
Right.
because we didn't even know they existed.
Right.
Okay.
So, and to Justin's knowledge, nothing's been taken out of these accounts for who knows when. I think he's been here for like 8 years. So during his time, nothing's been taken out.
Again, first things first. I think that we have to find out where these two mystery funds are.
Yes. And so I'm working on
Somebody's housing them because,
Well, the town is.
okay.
It's under the trustees of the trust fund.
Okay.
Yeah.
So-
But they have to my knowledge, they have no paperwork on them. So that's why I'm trying to find, I don't know how these started.
Okay.
Why they exist, what we can spend it on.
Okay, that would be really helpful information to have
Yes.
because we don't want to look like we're dopes.
No, if I knew that they existed, I would have done this
Of course.
much earlier.
Right.
I just had no clue that we even had them, and there's nothing in my office that I have access to
So
that
this
tells
is-
me differently.
So I think that, and particularly when people ask about these funds and how if you can spend out of them, then you can say, well, if we could,
Yeah.
we would.
Yeah.
And here are the parameters. This is how we can use it. You know,
And we
or
should
can't
have that
use it.
information.
Of course
right?
we should.
And
Of
the
course we
trustees should have that information.
Right.
So I am definitely working on trying to get that. I did a starting point today.
Because here's the other thing. If people are starting to dog you about, the trustees account or the trustees fund, whichever you want to call it, and this will be particularly helpful, I think, after we talked, or you talked with Justin about how to start our maintenance trust.
Oh, yeah.
Trust,
Yeah.
because the board would have to agree, but it would seem to me that if these maintenance trust funds needed seed money, if you will, it might be helpful to us to take some of the money out of here just to start a maintenance
If
trust fund.
the rules of the trust allow that, yeah.
Right, well,
Yeah.
that's right.
So-
So,
and-
I don't know that, you would know that. So
Yeah.
if this account is for expenditures only,
Right.
then you have to spend the money.
Yep.
But if it's not, if it's something that we could use to start a maintenance trust fund, then your pitch is, we are attempting to be fiscally responsible
Yeah.
here.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's where I would go with that.
Absolutely.
So, yes, we do have some money in this account, but we're inquiring, or we have inquired about moving forward, trying to start our maintenance trust funds so that, if something catastrophic happens in this
building's
building that's
ready.
aging,
Yep.
we don't have to go back to the taxpayers, or we show up with a deficit or whatever.
Right.
That we are planning in a fiscally responsible manner. That's how I would approach
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
What do you think?
No, I agree with that.
I mean, I certainly would, I'm going to do my due diligence to try to find, because I would like to know more about these trust
Right.
funds, to be
Be
honest.
nice to know.
Right.
I didn't know that.
And how to use them if
Right,
at all.
right.
You know, I mean, maybe they could be trust funds where you're only allowed to spend the interest.
Right.
I have no idea.
And a lot of times that's what the rules are, but
We should know that.
I'll hopefully have some information for the next meeting. I don't know how long it's going to take, but, so that's something to also think about.
Okay, good.
But,
But
you know,
I-
I do agree with Donna. I think there's a possibility that the inquiries might be something, but, you know, at the same time, I'll say it, which I don't think it needs to be said, is that really the trustees account is not to supplement the municipal budget.
Correct.
And the town has a responsibility to the community to provide a budget for the library that's appropriate. And the trustees, in my opinion, do not have the responsibility to make up for anything that the town cannot provide.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
That money is there for a reason, and we do use it. Obviously,
yeah.
we've used quite a bit of it recently, but that's what it's there for. And I feel like, you know, in a way, we did supplement the budget
Absolutely.
by using some of that money to pay for GMOs.
Absolutely.
So we did do that on our own, recognizing the cost and trying
Yeah.
to, again, become responsible in spending the
Very
budget.
responsible.
Right.
But I don't
And we
think it's
raised money.
right, and I don't think it's something that the trustees' account can accommodate as a long-term solution.
No.
It certainly cannot. The amount of money
No.
that comes into that
No.
account is not enough
No.
to do that. So,
But can I go back to Donna's question for
Of course.
just a minute? So I agree with you. I'm not sure that I want any kind of a document circulating either, you know, although I think probably the town and the school board do that. In fact, I know they do. But I don't know that that's always helpful because people sometimes, not always, people sometimes will focus on what they see and what they hear. Oh, look, they don't have any problem over here. They can easily take $10,000 out of their budget. They said so right here.
yeah.
Which I agree is not the perspective that we want out there. You know, I agree with you. I would assume that we want you to go to the board and present a fiscally responsible, well thought out budget. And, you know, I like that perspective. If they tell you to take 10% out or whatever, I don't believe that they'll ask you to take 10% out of our budget. But then you can say that you will go back and talk with the board. And that, you know, in your language, I would say that's disappointing because this is a very fiscally responsible budget. It's already airtight. I don't know where we're going to take it out, but I will bring it back to the board.
Yep. And I have no problem saying that.
I would say that dripping with love and diplomacy,
Yeah.
even though you probably want to go
Well,
with a baseball bat, you know.
I mean, it would be very disappointing if they asked us to cut,
Yeah.
because it does feel really strongly like an attack, and not a plan on their end. But
Okay,
we will see what happens.
we'll take that. We'll cross that bridge when we come
Yeah.
to it. but
So,
got that.
do you have anything else to add? I didn't know.
So my question about the trustees account, if questions are raised about that, again, same messaging, we'll bring it back to the board.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's your account. I certainly can't say at that meeting that, sure, we'll take $10,000 out of that. And
That's the way it's historically been handled, that, you know, that it is not the responsibility of this fund to, you know, supplement the library, then I agree with that messaging, 100%,
Yeah.
you know?
And to be honest, it's not appropriate for it to be
Right.
spent that way.
Right.
It really isn't.
Right.
And, but if they ask for, so like kind of like a blanket statement, if they ask for any sort of like, you know, well, what about the trustees account? You know, can't you take money out of there? or, hey, you should cut your budget such and such percent or such and such dollars, my answer is going to be like, I will, take it back to the board. Because in the end, it's the board's decision. The board's not to vote on it. So I can't make that decision at that seat anyway.
Right, exactly.
So, and to be honest, I don't think I would want to. I think I would want to think about it. If I did have that power, I think I would want to think about it and see where is the best.
Well, because that if that happens, take some, say 5% out of this, that you're going to put it together in your head and you're going to bring it back to the board and you're going to ask for their recommendations.
Right, sure.
So I think that's a very appropriate response, don't you?
Yes, yeah. I do.
Okay. So
You go, girl.
I just wish people could see that, we really are trying our best to be fiscally responsible,
We know that.
and it's frustrating when people look at things and kind of saying you don't really need that, or you don't, or that seems like a little. It really isn't. There's when you look at what other libraries have, which between bookmobiles and branch, the whole branch of another building, we're this is survival mode right here. This is not thriving. This is survival, and I really it's frustrating when people don't see that you are really working hard to be as best as you can. To do the right thing, and that's so frustrating because I know all my staff is always looking for opportunities and ways to save money, whether it's, people bringing in, donations from home, as if it even comes down to books, puzzles, whatever that looks like, is still a savings to a library if we add them to a collection. So I know that's minimal, but we really do
I think
try.
it's just the nature of librarians and libraries to be that way.
I agree.
I always have been that way.
Yeah.
It's just, and then that's why it really hurts so much when.
Right.
It's like that in public education too.
Because to be honest,
when you go to,
I'm sorry. No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, for example, when you go to any school district office, it's always the hand-me-downs, and it's always the oldie-goldies. And then you go to the town office, and it's beautiful. And I'm like, I have never understood that. Never. I'm sure you all remember what the quote clam shack looked like, right? Next to the district office, next to the.
Oh, yeah.
I wasn't here then.
No?
I heard about it, but I wasn't here.
Old, broken down, really a sick building, and then you go into the town offices and they're beautiful. And you're like, how does that work? So you're right. It's just the nature of it. I don't know why libraries are treated like the adopted stepchildren.
And we do really try to find those donations or those rebates or those whatever that looks like. For example, the picnic tables, I know you guys approved the $2,000. I was able to save 80%, I wish, over $80 on it because the guy told me about a code. I said, do you offer any discounts to library, whatever? And he told me about a code that I could find online that would save me 10%.
Beautiful.
So,
Perfect.
we do ask, but then there is people who are like, no, well, I'm not going to offer you a discount, and you don't have any options, and that's what you have to go with. And so I'm never ashamed to ask somebody for money when it comes to the library, because I feel like it's that important. But you're not always going to get a yes, and you're not always going to get people who are supportive of your mission, and that's okay. But it doesn't mean that it's not important what we're trying to do. That's right. So I'll get off my soapbox.
No,
poor Donna's writing all these things down. Okay, so moving on. So at this time, we don't want to do any changes to what we have here in the budget.
No.
So I will work on trying to get updated salary numbers as much as I can before our October meeting.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll have something, or updated medical numbers as well. And I will also, I'm trying to find out about those trust funds, and
We're adding a bottom line.
adding the bottom line. That's right. Yep, adding it up. Totally it up.
Did you bring those dates down, Erin, that Justin
You know what I did? I printed them, and they are in my printer upstairs.
Okay.
But I can go get them. Do you want me to go get them? I can go get them. It probably isn't.
I mean, I know, I don't know the exact date. You could probably find it on your calendar on your phone.
Just
But
budget meetings.
we have 2 dates that Justin's shared. We don't have the full calendar yet. He expects to share it in October. So the 2 dates that he is fairly certain will not change are the first Saturday in November, which is the budget
Which
presentation.
is the second?
The second.
Yes, I'm here.
The second, yep.
So we'll be presenting that morning. It
Okay.
usually runs, do they start at 8 or 9?
I think last year they started at 9. There was a big discussion about it last year
So
when
you-
they started.
I'm sorry, you said the first Saturday in November?
So it's
Yes,
November 2nd. yeah.
Library budget presentation.
presentation. It's always tough to know when we're going to go because we rely on like who's going before.
Yeah, I
Like
think
we have to
we
wait
were
for who's
there,
going before
yeah.
us.
And they sometimes, like, depending
Sometimes
on
we're
the
last.
and sometimes the people before us take a long time, or they're short, depending on who that is. So
Yeah.
we plan to be there, obviously,
9.
starting. I think we usually get there between like 8:30 and 9,
Okay.
and then we stay until. And we'll present, but then we usually stay to. You stay to the end
Yeah.
too, just because in case there's any questions that come
Okay.
up. So we plan to stay there the whole time.
And what's the next date?
The other one is the deliberative session, which is the first Saturday in February, which I think was the 8th.
First
first.
Saturday in February is the first.
Okay, it's not the first, it's the 8th.
8th. Okay, that's the second Saturday.
Second Saturday in
All right, let
February.
me put that in. That's the
That's the one that's usually
library
at the high
budget
school
deliberative. Oh, okay, right.
with like the, yeah, all the pub. Well,
But-
everyone's invited to all of them, but that's the big one.
There's also a series of, usually, I don't know if it's going to be the same this year, but a series of workshops between
Yeah, the-
our budget presentation, or
Yeah.
everybody's budget presentation, and the deliberative,
Yep.
which I try to attend as many of those as possible, because sometimes there will be questions of the library coming up, and I want to be able to answer those, or at least say, I will get back to you, I want to be present. So once I get those dates, I will certainly share with you guys. And obviously, there's public comment, I believe, in everything, so people can come and speak.
Is it the 8:30 a.m. again, the deliberative?
Deliberative is,
I believe it actually starts at 9, but we
Yeah.
usually get there a little.
yeah, because there's a lot of,
February 8th.
They
of
like check
November.
you in.
they check you in, there's a lot of, before, like they even, I think, start talking about the budget, there's some
Like awards. they give out.
awards and some other
Oh,
procedural
that's right,
type
person
stuff.
of the year and all that
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, so they go through
And they
all of that.
recognize retirements usually.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right.
And before they get to, and then they go
Oh,
through.
the town manager does his
address.
address, yeah.
State of this, the
Yeah.
state of the town.
Yeah, and then they go through each warrant article one by one. So
Okay.
if we're going to have a warrant article, we really need to be there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because the members of the public have to okay it going to the ballot. So,
yeah, that's at that moment.
Okay.
yes.
And then if it is a warrant article and it does go to the ballot, we really need people to vote.
Oh, my God.
Yes.
Because last time it was a snowstorm and we
That didn't work out for
didn't work
us.
it out, but we hope for no snowstorms. So I will, of course, share those dates with the board, and certainly I'll share it in an email and then also at the meeting, just so they have it in writing too, in case they forget. But I apologize, Dawn, I printed out the email, it's sitting in my
For
computer, for my printer.
That's okay.
So, was there any other questions? Okay. Are you good to? There's no public
Are
comment
there any
still.
other comments from?
Nobody is present for public comment, so we will call the meeting to end at 6:53.